Okay, so this is the last video in the PPE section that we're going to do today, but I wanted to go over foot protection. When we look at it, and a lot of you know that there is several types of foot protection out there. They can be in different brands as well and different styles. As you can see here, it can be anywhere from rubber boots, steel toe boots, into a dress shoe, and then also tennis shoes. So it depends on what your company is requiring for you to use. But it's covered under ANSI Z41 when we look at it. And there's different dates that we're without, but it has to have an ANSI standard on that for it to be approved through the OSHA. When we look at different types of causes of foot injuries, a lot of times it's going to be slips or trips. When we look at it, it can be any type of splash of chemical or metal that's going to be on the foot. When we also too have any types of nails or spikes or anything that can pierce the shoe and potentially get to the foot, that's where we want to make sure that we have that. And so it's under 1910-136 and 1926.96 when we look at it. So this is the protection chart, and it kind of tells us what we might be wanting to use when we look at it. And sorry, I threw the wrong thing away. When we're looking at the foot protection, let me grab this out of here. Okay. We want to look at what type of source is going to, what type of energy source or what type of source is going to be there, whether it's just water, chemicals, any type of electrical impact, penetration, anything. And you can see here that the assessment of the hazard, once again, we'd find this out during our hazard assessment. We could potentially do this, then this is the type of shoe that we would want. And it's pretty laid out with regard to that. This is just shows you with regard to a safety shoe, what it kind of looks like. And, you know, a lot of times they're going to be insulated. They're going to have some special soles that are on that. The safety toe is going to be either metal or it's going to be some type of aluminum to make it lighter, which is going to cover the toe. There is something called a metatarsal guard, which is going to be kind of up in this area to kind of protect that metatarsal. But one of the things that we do, we need to make sure when we are telling our employees with regard to safety shoes is to make sure that they are comfortable with, you know, to wear as well. So having any type of good insert was also be very important. Once again, this is just another example here of a metatarsal guard. This would be one that if you didn't have, you just had a safety toe shoe and you wanted to cover the metatarsal, it would cover it up in this area. These are just some slip-ons so that if a person has regular shoes, they can actually slip this shoe on. It's just a rubber-based shoe, and it has a safety toe with regard to it. So let's go ahead and go into hand protection when we look at it, and sorry for the gross picture. When we look at it, a lot of times hand injuries are going to be from cuts or any type of punctures. But one of the main things that I was just looking at, obviously, is going to be amputations. We can also get burns from this, any type of chemical exposure, and you can see the the OSHA, the hand protection under 1910-138, and then the selection of the hand protection is in 1910-100 when we look at it. So when we look at the types of hand protection that we're going to use, we do need to make sure that we look to see what type of glove it is and what it's made for. And so what we need to do is kind of figure out what we're doing in our job, how long they're going to be utilizing or what they're going to be doing in that job, and then the hazards. And so just because this is a leather glove, it's just a regular leather glove that a lot of you have probably worn or seen worn. These are for something specific. And so we need to make sure we look at the types of hand protection and what's going to be used for. So this once again is leather, and this is going to help us from scrapes or any type of rough surfaces. This one doesn't have any type of insulated liner, so we can't use this with electricity, but this would kind of help us with anything like that. This is just a different type of leather glove, and this is pretty common too. If we're gripping something, this does have, excuse me, some insulation in this part of it, and so if we are dealing with something that is going to be hot, and so it's padded, it has that insulation in there, kind of like a pot holder insulation. So we could utilize it for that. This is going to be a chemical glove, and we know this from kind of so that it's water resistant or any type of chemical resistance when we look at it. So that is one. And then also too, even just a simple nitrile glove is going to be utilized. This can only be used with specific chemicals, so depending on what it is, this is just kind of common chemicals, and this one would probably be a little bit more, and so we would look at it. This is going to be disposable as well. This is a heat. When we look at heat, we can have, it goes up to a certain amount of degrees. This has like little type of knobbies on it. So we used to utilize these quite a bit in the plastics field when we look at it. Also too, when we look at some type of heat resistant, this is going to be obviously a mega heat resistant, and this is way too big for me, but it's going to be having a lot more heat resistant than what the other one was with regard to that. There's also this is not chemical resistant, but it does provide some dexterity when we look at it. And so you can kind of grip it, and it has like a rubbery thing right here, so you can see that, and so we would utilize that. A lot of mechanics, once again, this doesn't fit me properly, but a lot of mechanics, you'll use this. And then the last thing that I want to show you here is this is actually an electrical glove, and the majority of the time the electrical gloves, let me try to find this, we're going to utilize a pair of typically like an insulated, not this kind, but an insulated leather glove underneath this, and this is for electrical, and so you can tell it's, once again, this one doesn't fit me. This is a used glove, and it is the max use of the voltage is 7,500 with regard to that, and it does kind of tell you on this. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Like, I wish it would focus in there. It's not focusing in very well, but it kind of tells you exactly what that is for. Finally, the last one is going to be the sleeve, and this is a different type of protection, and a lot of times this is going to be utilized in conjunction with, if I can show you here, and utilized in conjunction with a glove. The glove will fit over this, and then it will provide you protection all the way up to your arms, so that you're not having injuries here. This is just a cotton, regular cotton Kevlar is what this is, which is cut resistant, and this is a newer one, which is a little bit different, and this is just a sleeve, just a plain sleeve when we look at it, and it would just fit under your glove that way, but this would fit all the way up if I didn't have my shirt. But that is a different type of glove or hand and arm protection when we look at it. So we have to figure out what we're utilizing, what we're needing, and that type of thing. The last one that we're going to go through is respiratory protection. So let me stop this here real quick, grab the respiratory protection, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so the respiratory protection comes in a lot of different shapes as well. We're not going to go into a lot of detail on this. Like I said, we could probably go through a whole hour with this. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. But I want to kind of point out to you that this right here is a dust mask. This is the exact same protection of a dust mask. And even though they look different, they do provide the same amount of protection when we start looking at it. This one here, and all masks will have the rating on this. This is an N95. This one here is also an N95, and it's just going to protect you from any type of splashes. This one does have a nose piece on it, and it has different straps, unadjustable straps, whereas this one's a little bit more adjustable. And it does have a nose piece on this as well. Now there is a difference, and it has nothing to do with this piece right here. This is just a different type of ventilation. We can get those in N95 too, but this is my example, and this one actually says, if I can get that straight, it says P95. It does have the straps and this type of thing. The difference between this and this one's an N95, if you remember, and this is a P95. This one will help with particles of oil, whereas this one is just made for dust. So this one's oil and dust, and this one's just dust when we look at it. The other, so you can kind of see here, and I've got some examples of these. This one, the straps are going to be, I'm not going to put the straps on, but this is a half face mask, and so you can see that it only covers half my face, and this I'd have to wear some goggles or something like that. They have different types of cartridges that come with it, and these are kind of put on here, and so the cartridge would designate what chemical I was working with, and so it's pretty much a carbon filter that's in there. And this one has to do with organic vapors, is what that one's for. And then we also have a full face mask here, and this is going to be fit over my full face. I'm not going to put the straps on. A lot of times these are going to have your cartridges. This one also too is organic vapors. It's just a different type of cartridge, and it's just on here. It's just a different vendor when we look at it, but all of these are different, and so you have to make sure that you're utilizing what's proper to that. We also have, when we look at breathing apparatuses, and this is going to have like some type of forced air, either from a canister, or it's going to be, you can hook it up to what am I trying to say here? Like hook it up to a system that will have that. So for the most part, when we look at respiratory protection, once again, we want to make sure that we're preventing any type of contaminants that are in the environment that the person is around. It can be any type of dust with regard to like these dust masks and that type of thing, any smokes, vapors, any type of fumes that are out there. But the first thing that we want to do, especially with respiratory protection, is either get some type of ventilation so that the employee doesn't have to wear this, or utilize it with the PPE on that. And so you can see here as well that these are the numbers for the respiratory protection. And once again, I'm not going to go through a lot of this, but I wanted to kind of mention it. We could go into a long dissertation about this part of it, but we won't. So we do need to look and see if we are going to utilize respirators. And this is just kind of a chart that kind of follows this down through. Do we need one or do we not need one? If we do have a voluntary respirator program, we can go ahead and have an employee sign that. With regard to that, they do have to be provided information, like if we were utilizing these dust masks as voluntary, that it wasn't required. We do have to make sure that they read through, they have to know the proper use, and we've trained them on how to use any type of respiratory protection, and then they have to sign an Appendix D, which is a short appendix that is out there with regard to it. And we do have to have a written respirator program, but it could be a voluntary respirator program at that point. If we don't have the voluntary and we are requiring it, then we must provide the information to the employees, and we have to we have to establish the respirator program. We have to have procedures, and we have to also train to all of these, and they do have to have medical testing and everything else. So once again, we could go into a lot with regard to that. But just to kind of finalize this, employers, we do have to have that PPE program. We do have to make sure that we do that job hazard analysis. We want to utilize engineering and administrative controls prior to utilizing PPE. And if we utilize PPE, we do need to have it documented what those engineering work practice controls or administrative controls are that we're using in conjunction with it. We do have to train employees, and we have to select and make sure that the employees are able to utilize that and where it's got to have a proper fit. So with that, once again, engineering controls, administrative controls, and PPE as a last resort. And, you'll get a lot of excuses of why people don't want to wear PPE. Just make sure that they understand that it's the law, and make sure that you are watching the employees on that. So with that, we're done with PPE. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you soon.